I'm sorry, am I reading this correctly? You're gonna make an exception for somebody that you could never even pull. What a real ass smacker. Let's leave that shit in 2020. It's never been a compliment. It's never gonna be a compliment. Ever. Get over yourself. Please.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some and peace out to the rest of you. The blackest heart, the blackest mind, the blackest man on social media signing black in and shining again, asking you to hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. You all saw that video. Now I want to apologize because as a Muslim, I wouldn't normally display women in that capacity. I wouldn't display men in that capacity. In this case, I had to point something out. And that is that some people, some of you even are going to think, okay, well, that was actually a powerful message. Excuse me, hold on a second. Now I want you to imagine, I want you to go back, play it, but this time listen to it with your eyes closed. Then I want you to imagine her saying the same thing with an oversized t-shirt on and some big old baggy sweatpants. And no wiggling and dancing at the end. I want you all to look at that. Or listen, but with your eyes closed. Listen to that. And you will then notice that this is the one thing that we men need to take accountability for. The one thing, the one weakness that men have had, generally speaking, has been women. And we have been entirely too weak for women on their behalf without us realizing it. I'm not saying we're wrong for being interested. I'm saying we're wrong for being weak and being swayed by these things. And so I'm going to tell you now, she put on the makeup, added the filter, put on those clothes, and said what she said. Then she had to smack her butt and wiggle to get the message across because she knew and understood that without sexual appeal, she couldn't get this message across. Now, if she had tried this without trying to appeal sexually, the message, although the truth of it would have still been recognized by us men, the stupidity would have also been glaring. How so? It's true. To tell someone I'm not normally into dark-skinned women, but I'm gonna make an exception for you is a dumb thing to say. It is not really much of a compliment, I don't think. However, to say something like this is not the dumbest thing someone can say. She then says, so you're going to make an exception for someone you can't get anyway? Then she has to smack her butt because, see, what she's doing is she's appealing to the narcissism, her own narcissism, female narcissism, the same one that was on that Kevin Samuel show, I think, where she said, I want men to feel like, I want men to want me, but I want them to feel like they can't get me. I think it was on Kevin Samuels. There's a woman that said that. She's not the only one to feel that way. That's what most of them want. And she wants the same thing. She wants to be wanted but unattainable. Women want to be every man's fantasy and they don't really want to satisfy most men. Very few. That's not okay, to be honest with you. And while many women accept Islam because they aren't sexually objectified according to the religion. I'm not saying it never happens, but not according to the religion. They're not sexually objectified except within the confines of a marriage. However, when they find that they're not receiving that same sexual attention, many of them go back. That's the other truth of the matter. Many decide, you know what, I'm tired of not getting the sexual attention from men, and so they take off the hijab and they either stop. They just don't wear the hijab or they leave the religion altogether because they get sick and tired of not being the fantasy. Many women go into Islam not because they're sick and tired of the objectification or sick and tired of the attention. They go into it because they're sick and tired of the pressure to satisfy. That's why that's what happens a lot of times. You really want to know the truth? There it is. I shouldn't say many, But this is a common enough reason, but you don't necessarily know what their intentions are until they show them later. So I'm not knocking those who go into Islam. Everyone is welcome to accept it. MOT is an atheist. If he accepts Islam tomorrow, he is our brother in religion with equal rights and responsibilities. It's like this for anyone, any woman, same thing. A woman can be a downright atheist. Chrissy could accept Islam tomorrow. She becomes my sister in religion just like Kendra D is, with equal rights and responsibilities. But over time, her sincerity is going to show if she is a public enough figure. And if any woman that has accepted it then takes off the hijab and starts modeling again, it is because they still want the attention, and they've decided that they would rather be pressured to satisfy, even though they're not going to give in, than to lose the attention altogether. Now that I've gotten that point out the way, let's go back to this lady here. The stupidity of the message is that it is not something that intelligent, mature black men are dumb enough to say. So in other words, women saying this to men or men saying this to women are low IQ. They're young and under the influence of the matriarchy and the gynocracy within their own families. That's the first thing. Young and immature, low IQ. Also, because of the stupidity it takes to say something like that, it is rare for people to say that to each other. It is common for people to repeat that once they hear it. That's what I want y'all to understand. I don't think this man was writing this comment necessarily to her, but if he was, it shows you the type dude. And the funny thing is, if she reacted, that means she wanted this cat. Now, she's wise in saying it's not a compliment, it ain't gonna be. But see, let me ask you this. When I was 17, this very, very adorable, gorgeous, fine, about the finest I ever dated in high school, abundantly melanated sister, whose first name starts with an M, said to me, first time we kissed, said to me, I usually like them much darker than you, but you fine. Now, we were 17, so we were young. You're going to say that I should excuse this. The problem is that if I was dumb enough to say something like that at 17, no one's required to excuse that. And if a woman accepted that from me and other women heard that, they would go to her and say, you stupid, because you were okay with him saying it. I'm not going to go into all the depth about that. I am going to say this, though. That did happen. And I was not supposed to, by any social standards of any peer group of mine, I was not supposed to analyze and scrutinize what she said. And I did pay attention to it, but I didn't assume the worst. I analyzed it and scrutinized it privately, internally, but I went ahead and gave the benefit of the doubt. And to be honest with you, for the most part, she did treat me pretty well. But I found out later she had other boyfriends, was kissing these other cats, and I found that out after we split up anyway. And here's the funny thing. I didn't realize that I was being over-scrutinized at all. I didn't understand that I was being over-scrutinized at all. Now, some things I did were a little bit odd, mostly just to test her. Some things, but that was rare. She did plenty of things that were odd because she's a woman. And I won't front. When she left, I'm pretty sure it was because I didn't sleep with her the time we found ourselves at my house by ourselves. The reason I didn't was because she was supposed to go and pick up her friend in a short time, who was also a friend of mine. And if she showed up late after we were seen leaving that party together, then people would have known, or they would have assumed that we had had sex. Her reputation would have been ruined, and I was already trained as a man looking like I do to protect the reputation of women that I was with. I was already trained that if people knew I slept with someone, they would call her a slut. I wasn't told exactly why this was, but I was trained to think, I was trained to know actually that this would happen, and I was trained to protect the reputation because I couldn't stand the guilt of being the reason somebody else had a bad reputation, unless they really deserved it. Looking back, I understand all of this. When she and I split up, she didn't tell me why. She asked me what I was going to do now, and I said to her, I'm going to have the same, I told her I'm going to have this discussion with my brother about him messing up my room. Oh, don't take it out on him. I said, no, you don't understand. I'm answering your question as to what I'm going to do next. That's the same thing I would have done if you and I had not just split up. The point I'm making is that your business and my business do not affect what happens inside of my home. No one from the outside affects our family business. I'm just answering your question as a courtesy. It's not something I would normally tell anyone outside the family. That's all. I'm not going to take it out on him. He's too young for that. It's not his fault. He had nothing to do with it. Give me more credit than that. I appreciate her concern for my younger brother. But by the same token, the point was that she was allowed to over-scrutinize everything I did, which she was doing based on my phenotype. I found out almost 7 years later. Other men are scrutinized, over-scrutinized for different things. Additionally, I found out that most black men get over-scrutinized for different reasons. Now, it kind of lessens as most black men grow older. That changes. Alhamdulillah, it tends to change, it lessens. But one thing that does not change, generally speaking, is a man's phenotype. So while a man who is a brain, who's very smart, that doesn't mean he's socially awkward. He still gets over-scrutinized by the black gynocracy and sisterhood as though he's socially awkward because they have a very binary way of viewing things. Again, they view us through negative stereotypes of white supremacy. And we turn as men and view each other through her eyes, not questioning how she views us. What happens is that if that's what it is with you, if you're a man with a brain and you're considered to be a nerd, because of your brain and your sense of responsibility, then of course that kind of diminishes as you get older. It's still an insult though. But it somewhat diminishes because the embarrassment factor to whatever woman you're with also lessens as you get older. When it comes to a racially ambiguous phenotype, that does not necessarily lessen. Therefore, the embarrassment factor to the African American woman on your arm does not go down that much. You see, if you are of a normal phenotype, you might still have some of that OG in you. But if you are of the abnormal one, then the assumption is that sorry, I get interrupted all the time, as I said. So what I'm getting at here is that the shame factor does not necessarily go down when it comes to the phenotype. What I'm getting at here is that number one, her message is only going to go as far as it does because of what she's wearing and the sexual appeal she intentionally placed on herself. Try to say the same thing without the makeup, without the filter, with baggier clothes on, and see how far it goes. I'm saying this to the women. Secondly, this colorism does not start with men. It is practiced by young, immature, low IQ men who are still under the influences of the gynocracy and sisterhood within their own families. It is practiced by them. It is perpetuated by them. This is true. This is something for which we can take accountability privately, but it is not perpetuated by mature adult black men because they're not allowed to be this way, as we've seen right now. See, no man is allowed to complain because they were told the same thing for being light-skinned. Because I have nothing to lose and I live abroad and you don't know my name and face, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Now it's time that we men, dark and light alike, come out, go ahead and start telling what you've been told by these sisters, whether it's with regard to relationships or any other stereotypes based on your shade and your phenotype. How were you expected to perform at your job based on that? How were you expected to perform in relationships based on that? What kind of husband were you expected to be based on that? Go ahead and tell it, gentlemen. What kind of dumb stuff have you heard? What kind of things have you been able to get away with even based on that? The difference is I'm not really sure what a lighter skinned or more ambiguous looking man is going to say he could get away with. I'm not sure about that anymore. That might have been back in the 80s. Nowadays, I don't know. I don't know what region of the country it allows you to get away with more. But we already know, because I've heard sisters say it. Abundantly melanated brothers can get away with some stuff. Because I've heard some of them say, oh, I'm going to get a dark-skinned man 5 chances. Now, I've heard some women say, I don't mind light-skinned men, or I think they're handsome too, but I've never heard any of them say that you get more chances or that they'll tolerate more stuff off of you. I've never heard that. And I don't expect to. Whereas I've heard at least 2 women I can remember right off the bat say that darker skinned men will get more chances, they will take more crap, explicitly saying this. So brothers, go ahead and start expose the colorism of the gynocracy and the sisterhood. Don't hide it. Because if we really get to sit up and compare actual experiences firsthand that we have versus what they have, it'll come out in the wash or in the rinse that we actually come across it firsthand more often. Whereas most of them are talking about the colorism that they never faced, but that they heard about from their friends or on social media. And I'm glad that people are coming out against it. I just don't like the one-sided nature in which people are coming out against it. It's wrong for men to have any kind of colorist preferences, but not for women. No. That works both ways. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. I think you got the point. Thank you for listening. The blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man. Signing black out. Gotta go teach. Assalamu alaikum. And black heterosexual non-select male power just because they don't like it, and black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day because they don't like it.